My name is Kelvin, and I work on the Andromeda Survey Station 7, which if you ask me sounds way more impressive than it actually is. The station orbits a dead moon nobody cares about, studying samples nobody wants to study, funded by a council that forgot we existed 3 budget cycles ago. But hey, it pays the credits, and the food dispensers work most of the time. We have what the administration calls a diverse crew complement, which is corporate speak for we hired whoever was cheap. There is me, a Voroth, basically your standard issue 4-armed, scales and logic type. Then we have Brixen, a Clorthian whose exoskeleton clicks when he walks, drives everyone nuts in the quiet sections. Minos is our Tigerian representative, all fur and teeth and an attitude problem the size of a cargo freighter. And Zafina, she is Kixara, which means she has 6 eyes and never stops judging you with at least 3 of them at any given moment. We all got along fine, you know, the usual workplace dynamics, complaining about the heating, stealing each other's lunch packets, placing bets on which equipment would break down next. It was comfortable, predictable, boring in the way that does not get you killed, which in space is actually pretty great. Then the human arrived. Her name was Rafi, and she looked exactly like every human I had ever seen in the database files. Soft skin, no natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs, no redundant organs. Just this tiny bipedal thing with hair on her head and these weird flexible fingers. She showed up with 2 bags and a smile that showed her blunt little teeth. "Hi everyone," she said on her first day, waving one hand in that peculiar human gesture. "Looking forward to working with you all." Brixen's antennae twitched in what I recognized as suppressed amusement. Minos yawned, displaying all 47 of his fangs. Zafina's 3rd and 5th eyes rolled simultaneously, which takes talent, honestly. I tried to be professional. "Welcome to the station," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Your quarters are in section 4. Meals are at standard intervals. Try not to break anything." She nodded enthusiastically, like I had just given her the secrets of the universe instead of basic station orientation. Humans, I thought, watching her drag her bags down the corridor with those weak little arms. Why did Command even send us one? What could something that fragile possibly contribute to a research station? The galaxy's idea of a practical joke, probably. That was my first mistake, assuming I understood anything at all. 3 weeks into Rafi's assignment, and the novelty of having a human on board had worn off completely. If anything, it had transformed into a kind of casual sport. Not malicious, you understand, just the way coworkers do when someone becomes the easy target. And Rafi, bless her soft-skinned self, made it incredibly easy. It started in the break room, which is where all the best and worst conversations happen on any station. Minos was complaining about the temperature again, which he did approximately 4 times per shift. "It is freezing in the lab," he growled, his fur puffed up for emphasis. "My homeworld averages 42 degrees standard. This is torture. Try having an exoskeleton." Brixen clicked back. "The cold makes my joints lock up. I am basically a statue by the end of shift." I was halfway through my nutrient pack when Zafina gestured toward the corridor with 2 of her limbs. "At least you 2 have natural protection. Look at the human. She wears 3 layers just to function." We all turned. Sure enough, Rafi was visible through the transparent section of the hallway, wrapped in a jacket, a sweater and what looked like a thermal underlayer. She caught us looking and waved. We did not wave back. "Pathetic, really," Minos continued, lowering his voice even though the walls were definitely not soundproof. "No fur, no scales, no temperature regulation worth mentioning. How did that species even survive long enough to develop space travel?" Brixen made that clicking sound that passes for laughter among Clorthians. I read the file on their homeworld. Predators everywhere. Massive creatures with claws and teeth. Their planet is categorized as a Class 4 death world, and yet humans have almost no natural defenses. None. It makes absolutely no sense. They are tool users, I offered, trying to be fair. Intelligence over physical adaptation. Zafina's eyes, all 6 of them, fixed on me with that look that suggested I had said something particularly stupid. "Intelligence. Kelvin," she asked me yesterday if the containment field for the Sarkoth specimen was pet-proof. Pet-proof, as if we keep cuddly animals in maximum security biocontainment. That got a genuine laugh from the group. Even I had to admit it was pretty ridiculous. "Remember last week?" Brixen added, warming to the topic. She jumped. Actually jumped when the pressure door sealed. The sound startled her. A door. Something she uses 20 times a day. Manos leaned back in his chair, balancing on its rear legs, which was against station regulations, but nobody cared. My species hunts for recreation. We track, we chase, we kill with our bare claws. It is in our nature. Humans, though, they order their food pre-processed. They panic at sudden noises. They cannot even see properly in low light. Back home we would consider them prey. Now that is unfair, I said, though I was not entirely sure why I was defending her. Humans have survived. They are here, in space, part of the Galactic Union. That counts for something. Barely, Zafina muttered. They are fragile, emotionally, physically, psychologically. Did you notice she flinches every time the artificial gravity adjusts? Every single time. The conversation drifted to other topics after that. The usual complaints about equipment and schedules and the quality of the recycled water, which honestly did taste like metal no matter what engineering claimed. But the tone had been set. Raifi was soft. Raifi was weak. Raifi was the living embodiment of every evolutionary disadvantage you could pack into a bipedal frame. What none of us knew, what none of us could have possibly guessed, was that Raifi had been sitting in the adjacent rest area the entire time. The wall panel between the two rooms had been open for repairs. She had heard every single word. She never mentioned it, never confronted us, never even changed her expression when she saw us next. She just smiled that human smile, the one that showed her flat little teeth, and went about her work like nothing had happened. Looking back now, that should have been our second warning sign. The first was underestimating her. The second was not realizing that she had been taking notes the whole time, cataloging exactly what we thought of her species, filing it away behind those strange forward-facing eyes. Humans, I would later learn, have excellent memories, especially when it comes to grudges. The alarm started at 0400 station time, which is the worst possible time for anything to go wrong. I was 3 hours into sleep cycle when the emergency klaxons blasted through my quarters, that specific pattern that means biological containment breach. Not a drill, not a malfunction, the real thing. I rolled out of my bunk, all four arms scrambling for my uniform, my brain still half in whatever dream I had been having. The intercom crackled to life with the voice of our station commander, who sounded significantly less calm than regulations probably required. All personnel, containment breach in xenobiology section. Repeat, containment breach. Specimen 7 Gamma is loose. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt to engage. Proceed to emergency assembly points and await security team. Specimen 7 Gamma. My scales went rigid. I knew that designation. Everyone on the station knew that designation. It was a Vrex, said Shredder. For those fortunate enough to have never encountered one, let me paint you a picture. Imagine something that evolution designed specifically to murder other things as efficiently as possible. 6 legs, each ending in claws that can shear through standard hull plating, a mouth that opens in 4 directions, lined with rotating teeth, because apparently regular teeth were not horrifying enough, armor plating that can deflect most handheld weapons, and the fun part, the really special part, it hunts by scent and movement, and once it locks onto prey it does not stop, ever. We had captured 7 Gamma from a failed colony expedition. The thing had killed 11 colonists before they managed to trap it. We were supposed to be studying its biology, figuring out weaknesses, standard research station stuff, supposed to being the key phrase that I made it to the common area in under 2 minutes, which might be a personal record. Brixen was already there, his exoskeleton gleaming under the emergency lighting antennae whipping back and forth in agitation. Minos arrived seconds after me, his fur standing on end, making him look twice his normal size. Tell me this is a malfunction. Brixen clicked rapidly. Tell me that thing is not actually loose. The security feed on the main display answered his question. There it was, 7 Gamma, stalking through the corridor outside xenobiology, its sensor array extended, tasting the air. Even through the camera, you could see the muscles rippling under its armored hide. Oh, ancestors preserve us, Minos whispered. How did it get out? Does it matter? Zafina appeared from the other entrance, moving faster than I had ever seen her move. It is out. The containment field failed. We need to seal this section and wait for the security team to tranquilize it. That was the plan. That was the reasonable, logical, survival-oriented plan. Then the secondary alarm kicked in. The one that meant the security team was not coming. The one that meant we were on our own. Security bay is on the other side of the breach, I said, checking my datapad with shaking hands. They cannot reach us without going through 7 Gamma's current position. Estimated time for reroute is 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Brixton's voice went up an octave. That thing can tear through a blast door in 5. As if on cue we heard it. The sound of claws on metal. Scraping, tapping, getting closer. 7 Gamma had picked up our scent. Our movements. Something. It was coming. Seal the doors, Zafina ordered, her usual composure cracking. Now. I hit the control panel. Nothing happened. I hit it again. Still nothing. The breach damaged the security systems, I said, and I could hear the edge of panic in my own voice. Manual override is not responding. The scraping sound grew louder, closer. Through the doorway we could see movement in the corridor, a shadow, massive and predatory, heading directly toward us. Minos backed away from the entrance, his claws extending instinctively. We need weapons. Something. Anything. The emergency locker, Brixton said, pointing with one leg. Stun batons, plasma cutters, maybe something that can slow it down. We scrambled toward the locker. 4 trained research scientists, reduced to terrified prey animals in approximately 90 seconds. Some record that was. That is when Refi walked in. She came from the sleeping quarters corridor, wearing her ridiculous human pajamas, the ones with little pictures of Earth animals on them. Her hair was messy. She was yawning. She looked like someone who had been woken up too early and was mildly annoyed about it, not like someone walking into an active predator situation. What is with all the noise? She asked, rubbing her eyes with one hand. Get back, I shouted, probably louder than necessary. Containment breach. Vaxid shredder. Extremely dangerous. She blinked at me, then she looked at the security feed, then she looked at the doorway where the shadow was now clearly visible, massive and moving with horrible purpose. Oh, she said. Just oh. Like I had told her we were out of coffee, not that we were about to be eviscerated by one of the galaxy's most efficient predators. 7 Gamma stepped into the doorway. The Vaxid shredder filled the entrance completely, and let me tell you, seeing one on a security feed does not prepare you for the reality of standing 15 meters away from 600 kilograms of concentrated murder. Its armor plating reflected the emergency lights in sickly green patterns. The sensor array on its head swiveled, processing the room, cataloging targets. Its mouthparts clicked together in a rhythm that I felt in my bones. Minos made a sound I had never heard him make before, high-pitched and desperate. His combat instincts, the ones he had bragged about just hours earlier, apparently did not include facing down something that outweighed him 3-to-1 and had evolutionary advantages he could not match. Do not move, Zafina hissed, freezing in place. Their vision is based on movement. That is Terran reptiles, Brixton clicked back frantically. Vaxids hunt by thermal signature and scent. Not moving does absolutely nothing. As if to prove his point, 7 Gamma's head snapped toward him, drawn by the clicking sounds. It took one step forward, then another. Its claws left score marks on the metal flooring. I looked at the emergency locker. Still 3 meters away. Might as well have been 3 kilometers. Moving toward it meant crossing 7 Gamma's direct line of sight. And while I am reasonably intelligent, I am not suicidal. The vents, I said quietly. We can reach the maintenance shafts through the ceiling panels. And climb where exactly? Minos shot back, his voice shaking. That thing can follow us anywhere in the ventilation system. It is smaller than most of the adults of its species. It will fit. He was right. Of course he was right. We were trapped in a room with a predator that could shred us individually or collectively, and our best survival strategy was apparently hope it choked on one of us and gave the others time to escape. 7 Gamma took another step, its mouthparts opened slightly, revealing the rotating teeth, listening with whatever biological nastiness Vaxids used for digestion. I could smell it now, this acidic rotten meat smell that made my stomach clench. Brixton made a break for it, just panicked and ran toward the opposite exit, his legs clattering against the floor in full retreat mode. 7 Gamma's response was immediate and horrifying. It launched itself forward with speed that should not have been possible for something that size, closing half the distance to Brixton in one fluid motion. Brixton. No! Zafina screamed. He hit the door control. Locked. Of course it was locked. The security system was down. He spun around, backed against the wall, his exoskeleton plates spreading in a defensive posture that would do exactly nothing against what was coming for him. 7 Gamma crouched, preparing to pounce. I could see the muscles bunching under its armor. This was it. We were about to watch our colleague get torn apart, and there was absolutely nothing we could do about it. I grabbed the nearest object, which happened to be a chair. Minos grabbed another one. We threw them simultaneously, desperate to distract the creature, to give Brixen even a few seconds. The chairs bounced off 7 Gamma's armor plating like insects hitting a windshield. It did not even turn its head. Zefina was crying, actual tears flowing from 4 of her 6 eyes, making these awful keening sounds. I had never seen a Kuksara cry before. I wished I never had. My legs felt weak. My arms felt useless. My entire evolutionary history, all the advantages my species had developed over millions of years. And here I was, completely helpless. We were all helpless, prey animals dressed up in uniforms, pretending we were anything other than fragile meat in a metal box. The Vrexid's haunches tensed. Brixen closed his eyes, and Rafi walked past me like she was heading to the cafeteria. "Excuse me," she said politely, actually saying excuse me, as she stepped around my frozen form. "Rafi, stop," I shouted, finding my voice. "Get back, you cannot. It will kill you." She did not stop, did not even slow down, just walked directly toward the Vrexid shredder with her soft skin and her complete lack of natural weapons and her ridiculous pajamas with the cartoon animals. "Are you insane?" Minos roared. "Human, stop moving right now." 7 Gamma's head swiveled toward Rafi. New target, closer target, smaller target. It shifted its weight, redirecting from Brixen to this tiny creature walking toward it with no apparent survival instinct whatsoever. "Oh ancestors, it is going to kill her," Zefina moaned. "We are going to watch it tear her apart." Rafi kept walking. 10 meters, 9 meters, 8 meters. The distance closed with each step, and my brain was screaming at me to do something, anything, but my body would not cooperate. I was locked in place by pure terror, watching this human girl commit what could only be described as suicide by predator. 7 Gamma's mouth parts opened fully, all 4 sections spreading wide, the teeth inside rotating faster, preparing to receive food. It made a sound, this deep thrumming growl that I felt in my chest cavity. 7 meters, 6 meters, 5. Rafi raised one hand, palm out, in a gesture I did not understand. "Hey there, big guy," she said, her voice calm, almost friendly. "Let us take this down a notch, okay?" 4 meters. 3. The Vrexid shredder lunged. Time did a funny thing in that moment. It stretched out, became elastic. Let me see every detail with crystal clarity. 7 Gamma launching forward, claws extended, mouth wide enough to bite Rafi in half. Rafi, not flinching, not running, just shifting her weight slightly to one side. The Vrexid missed, not by much, maybe 15 centimeters, but in a life or death situation, 15 centimeters might as well be 15 kilometers. 7 Gamma landed where Rafi had been standing a fraction of a second earlier, its momentum carrying it past her. It spun, faster than something that size should be able to spin, realigning on its target. Rafi had turned with it, maintaining eye contact, her hand still raised. "Easy now," she said, and her voice had changed. Still calm but different. Lower, steadier, the way you might talk to something you were not afraid of. "Nobody needs to get hurt here. Rafi, run!" Brixen screamed from his position against the wall. "For the love of all gods, run!" She did not run. She took a step forward, toward the Vrexid, toward the thing that had just tried to eat her. 7 Gamma's sensor array flickered, processing this prey did not move toward predators. That was not how the food chain worked. It made that thrumming sound again, confused, aggressive, warning her to back off. Rafi took another step, her hand lowered slightly, no longer palm out but angled downward, fingers loose. "I know, buddy. I know. You are scared. New place, strange smells, everyone running around screaming. That would freak me out too." "Scared?" Minos whispered beside me. "She thinks it is scared. That thing is an apex predator. It does not get scared." But here is the thing, and I did not realize it until much later. Rafi was not talking to us. She was talking to 7 Gamma, and more importantly, she was listening to it, watching it, reading signals the rest of us had not even noticed. The Vrexid's armor plates, the ones along its spine, they were extended slightly. The thrumming sound had a pattern to it, not constant but pulsing. Its claws, fully extended when it first entered, were starting to retract incrementally. Rafi took another step. Now she was close enough to touch it, close enough that if it wanted to kill her we would not even have time to scream a warning. "You are just doing what you are supposed to do," she continued in that same steady voice. "Defend yourself, find food, survive. I get that, but look around. See all these people? They are not threats. They are just researchers. Scientists. They are actually pretty pathetic in a fight, if I am being honest. Hey, I said weakly, but nobody was paying attention to me. 7 Gamma's head tilted, actually tilted, like it was considering her words. No, not her words. Her tone, her body language. Something. Refi slowly, and I mean glacially slowly, reached out her hand, not toward its head, not toward its teeth, toward its shoulder joint where the armor plating was thinnest, where the nerve clusters would be most concentrated. Do not do that, Zafina breathed. Please, human, do not do that. Refi's fingers made contact. 7 Gamma froze. Every muscle in its body went rigid. Its mouth parts snapped shut. For 3 heartbeats absolutely nothing happened. We all stood there, waiting for the inevitable moment when the Vraxid would come to its senses and rip her arm off. Then Refi started scratching. Not petting. Not stroking. Scratching. With her fingernails right at that shoulder joint. Firm pressure. Repetitive motion. Focused on one specific spot. 7 Gamma made a sound. Not the thrumming growl. Not the attack screech. Something completely different. A kind of rumbling, rattling noise that came from deep in its thorax. Is it purring? Brixen asked, his voice cracking on the last word. Vraxids do not purr, Menos said automatically. That is impossible. They are killing machines. They do not purr. Except it kind of was purring. Or doing whatever the Vraxid equivalent was. The armor plates along its spine lowered. Its claws retracted completely. Its sensor array stopped whipping around and focused entirely on Refi, who was now using both hands, scratching methodically at multiple pressure points. There we go, she murmured. That is better, is it not? See? Nobody is hurting anybody. We are all just existing in the same space. Very chill, very calm. She moved her hands to the base of its skull, where the sensor array connected to the main body. More scratching, more of that rumbling sound. 7 Gamma's legs, which had been tensed for combat, relaxed. It actually lowered itself closer to the ground, giving Refi better access. Okay, I said out loud to nobody in particular. What am I watching right now? Is this real? Am I having a mental breakdown? Refi glanced over at us, and she smiled. That human smile. But this time it did not look weak or prey-like. It looked knowing, maybe even a little smug. Someone want to grab the containment collar from the emergency locker? She asked casually, like she was requesting a stapler and not a device to restrain a lethal predator currently under her hands. It should be on the second shelf, red case. Nobody moved. We were all too busy staring. Guys, Refi said, more firmly this time. Collar, now, before it realizes what is happening. That snapped me out of it. I stumbled toward the locker, my legs remembering how to function, found the red case, pulled out the containment collar, which was heavier than I expected, brought it back to Refi, holding it at arm's length like it might explode. Great, she said. Now see that seam on its neck, right below the third armor segment. Slide the collar under there, then bring it around and lock it on the opposite side. Smooth motions, no sudden moves. You want me to put my hands near that thing? I asked, my voice going higher than I would have liked. Kelvin, it is fine. Trust me. Just do what I said. Trust her. The human. The soft-skinned, weak, fragile human who had somehow turned a Vraxid shredder into an oversized pet in under 5 minutes. Sure, why not? Nothing else about this situation made sense. I reached out with all 4 hands, which was actually an advantage here. Slid the collar into position. The Vraxid shifted slightly, and I nearly dropped the whole thing, but Refi made a soothing sound and kept scratching, and 7 Gamma settled again. I brought the collar around, locked it with shaking fingers. The collar activated, sending a mild sedative through 7 Gamma's system. Not enough to knock it out, but enough to make it drowsy and compliant. Its eyes, all 6 of them, started to droop. Perfect, Refi said. She gave 7 Gamma one final scratch behind its sensor array. Good boy. Very good boy. Let us get you back to your habitat, okay? Somewhere safe and quiet. She stood up, brushed off her pajamas and looked at the 4 of us. We were still frozen, still processing, still trying to understand what had just happened. So, Refi said brightly, who wants to help me walk him back to containment? Nobody spoke for a solid 10 seconds. We just stood there staring at Refi, then at 7 Gamma, who was now docilely sitting on the floor like an oversized armored puppy, then back at Rafi again. The emergency lights continued their lazy rotation, painting everything in shades of red and amber that made the whole scene feel even more surreal. Brixton broke the silence first. "That should not have worked," he said flatly. "What you just did violates approximately 11 principles of xenobiology and basic survival instincts. That creature was in full predator mode. You should be dead. We should all be dead." Rafi shrugged. Actually shrugged. Like she had just performed a mildly interesting party trick instead of preventing a massacre. Predator mode. Sure. But also stressed mode. Confused mode. Fight or flight response maxed out. You just needed to give it a reason to choose neither fighting nor fleeing. By walking directly toward it, Safina asked, her voice still shaky. Two of her eyes were still leaking tears. "That is your strategy. Approach the thing that wants to kill you." "It did not want to kill me specifically," Rafi corrected. "It wanted to neutralize perceived threats and establish safety." "Big difference. You all were running, screaming, throwing furniture. From its perspective, you were the aggressors. I just showed it that not everyone in the room was a threat." Manos had finally peeled himself away from his corner. His fur was still puffed out, making him look twice his size, which would have been funny under different circumstances. "And the scratching thing, where did that come from?" "Vexids are not domesticated animals. They do not respond to physical affection. Every species with a complex nervous system has pressure points," Rafi said, walking over to where 7 Gamma sat. She patted its armor plating, and it made that rumbling sound again. "Spots where tactile stimulation triggers neurological responses. Relaxation, pleasure, whatever you want to call it. You just have to know where to look and how much pressure to apply." "How could you possibly know where a Vraxid's pressure points are?" I asked. "We have been studying this specimen for 6 months. Our entire xenobiology team has not mapped its nervous system completely." Rafi looked at me with those forward-facing human eyes, and there was something in that look I had not seen before. Patience. Maybe. Or pity. "I read the preliminary reports in the database when I got assigned here. Your team documented external anatomy, digestive processes, muscular structure, basic stuff, but nobody bothered to compare it to analogous species structures or evolutionary patterns. Nobody asked why a predator that size would have exposed nerve clusters in those specific locations." "Exposed nerve clusters are a vulnerability," Zafina said slowly. "A design flaw." "Or," Rafi countered, "they are exactly where you would want them if you are a social species that uses physical contact for bonding and hierarchy establishment. Vraxids are not solitary hunters. They hunt in packs on their homeworld. That means social structure. That means communication methods beyond just violence." The pieces started falling into place in my head, and I did not like the picture they were forming. "You are saying we have been treating it like a mindless killing machine when it is actually an intelligent social predator." "Intelligent might be a strong word," Rafi said. "But social, definitely. Capable of learning, absolutely. Responsive to non-threatening interaction, as you just saw, yes." Brixton made a series of rapid clicks, his version of nervous laughter. "This is absurd. Humans are classified as one of the physically weakest species in the Galactic Union. No natural weapons, minimal sensory capabilities, fragile body structure, yet you just dominated a Vraxid shredder through behavioral understanding alone." "Humans are weak," Rafi agreed cheerfully. "Compared to most galactic species, we are pretty pathetic in direct physical confrontation. We cannot outrun a Tigerian. We cannot outclimb a Vorath. We cannot sense electromagnetic fields like Kuxara, and our exoskeletons are non-existent, unlike Clorthians." "Then how?" Menos demanded, and there was something almost desperate in his voice. "How did you do what you just did?" Rafi bent down and scratched 7 Gamma one more time right at the base of its skull. The Vraxid leaned into her touch. "Because on Earth we have been dealing with predators since before we could make fire. Big ones, fast ones, smart ones, ones with teeth longer than your hand and enough bite force to crush bones like they are made of paper. We did not survive by being stronger or faster. We survived by being smarter. By watching, learning, understanding behavior patterns and exploiting them." She stood up and faced us directly. "You know what we have on Earth? Bears. Massive omnivores that can tear a human apart in seconds. Know what we also have? Bear trainers. People who work with them, handle them, even perform with them. Not because bears stopped being dangerous, but because humans learned to read their body language and respond appropriately. We have big cats," she continued, warming to her subject. "Ambush predators with retractable claws and incredible speed. Tigers, lions, leopards. Individually, any one of them could kill an unarmed human easily, but we have wildlife experts who relocate them, veterinarians who treat them, conservationists who track them, because we studied them, understood them, figured out how they think. Crocodiles, she said, and I saw Brixton's antennae twitch in confusion at the unfamiliar word. Reptiles that have not changed in millions of years because they are already perfectly designed for killing. Bite force that can shatter steel. Do you know there are people on Earth whose job is to tape their mouths shut, relocate them and manage their populations? It is called being a wildlife handler, and it is considered a normal career path. Zafina's eyes were all fixed on Rafi now, no longer judging, but calculating. Your entire planet is filled with creatures that can kill you. Our entire planet is a Class 4 death world, Rafi said simply. Everything there is either trying to eat you, poison you, or crush you. We have spiders whose venom can kill you in hours. Plants that cause pain so severe people have committed suicide after touching them. Weather patterns that can level cities. Ocean creatures that are pure nightmare fuel. And that is just the natural environment. That is not even counting the bacteria, the viruses, the parasites. She gestured to 7 Gamma. This thing, it is scary, sure, but compared to a saltwater crocodile or a grizzly bear or even an aggressive hippopotamus, it is manageable. It has patterns. It has behaviors. It has buttons you can push if you know where they are. The room fell silent again. We were all recalculating, all reevaluating everything we thought we knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. The mockery, I said quietly. Earlier today, in the break room, you heard us, did you not? Rafi's expression did not change. The wall panel was open. Sound carries. I heard every word. And you did not say anything, Minnow said, and he sounded almost ashamed. Why would I? Rafi asked. You are not entirely wrong. Humans are fragile. We do scare easily. We do not have natural armor or weapons. Those are all facts. But you made the mistake of thinking that fragility equals weakness. That fear equals inability. Earth taught us a long time ago that the scariest thing is not the biggest predator. It is the small scared thing that learned to fight back smart instead of fighting back hard. 3 weeks have passed since the incident. 3 weeks since Rafi, wearing pajamas decorated with cartoon animals, walked up to a Vraxid shredder and turned it into something resembling a domesticated pet. 3 weeks since everything I thought I understood about humans got thrown out the nearest airlock. The station feels different now. Quieter, maybe. More thoughtful. Less casual in the way we talk about species differences and evolutionary advantages. Turns out nearly dying together has a way of adjusting perspectives. 7 Gamma is back in containment, but the protocols have changed completely. Rafi consulted on the redesign, suggested environmental enrichments, social interaction schedules, even specific handling techniques for the research staff. The creature that had been classified as unredeemably hostile is now cooperative during examinations. It still has not tried to kill anyone since that night. Some coincidence, right? Brixton apologized first, showed up at Rafi's quarters with a formal statement of regret, which for Clorthians is actually a pretty big deal. They are not exactly known for admitting fault. Rafi accepted with grace, offered him some earth beverage called tea, and they spent 2 hours discussing behavioral psychology across species lines. Now they eat lunch together most days, and Brixton's reports have improved significantly because Rafi keeps pointing out patterns he misses. Manos took longer. Pride is a serious thing for Tigerians, especially when it gets punctured by someone a third your size. But eventually he came around, started asking Rafi about Earth predators, comparing them to species from his homeworld. Turns out Tigerians have a healthy respect for anything that survives against terrible odds. Rafi fits that category now. Last week I caught him recommending her for a commendation. Character development at its finest. Zafina just watches Rafi now with all 6 eyes, but differently than before, not judging. Studying. She has been requesting files on Earth biology, human history, survival strategies. I think she is writing a paper, something about underestimated species, and the correlation between environmental pressure and adaptive intelligence. Rafi is going to be cited extensively. That should be interesting when it publishes. And me. I still work with Rafi every day. Still see her wrapped in 3 layers because she is always cold. Still watch her jump slightly when the pressure doors seal too loudly. Still notice all those little vulnerabilities that my species does not have. But now I also see the other things. The way she notices details everyone else misses. The way she reads body language across species barriers like she is reading a technical manual. The way she stays calm when everyone else is panicking. Not because she is fearless, but because she has already calculated 17 different survival strategies before the rest of us finished screaming. Humans, I have learned, are what happens when you take a species with no natural advantages and drop them into an environment that should absolutely kill them. What survives that process is not the strongest or the fastest. It is the most adaptable, the most persistent, the most willing to learn from everything trying to murder them and turn that knowledge into an advantage. We were joking in the break room last week. Safer topics now, less mockery, more actual humor. Someone made a comment about the heating system, and Rafi just smiled that human smile and said something that has been stuck in my head ever since. You know what the scariest thing about humans is? She asked, not really expecting an answer. We are not the apex predator on our own planet. We never were. We are just the thing that figured out how to make everything else work for us anyway. We did not win by being dangerous. We won by being too stubborn to accept losing. Brixton clicked thoughtfully. Persistence predation, right? That is the term for human hunting strategy. Chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Exactly, Rafi said. We are not fast enough to catch a deer in a sprint, but we can jog after it for 8 hours straight until it physically cannot run anymore. That is humanity in a nutshell. We do not quit. We do not give up. We just keep coming. Keep adapting. Keep learning. Until the problem is solved or we are dead. Usually we solve the problem. That is terrifying, Zafino observed. That is survival, Rafi corrected. When your planet is actively trying to kill you every single day, you either develop that mindset or you go extinct. We developed it. The conversation moved on after that, but those words stayed with me. Still stay with me. Because here is the thing nobody tells you about humans when you read their species classification file. The file lists their weaknesses, their limitations, their physical disadvantages. It does not mention the important part. It does not mention that humans evolved on a planet where everything was better equipped than them, and they survived anyway. It does not mention that they climbed to the top of the food chain without claws, without venom, without armor, without any of the standard predator equipment. It does not mention that they did it with nothing but pattern recognition, tool use, and absolute refusal to accept that they should be prey. The galaxy looks at humans and sees soft skin, fragile bones, limited senses. What the galaxy misses is the context. Those soft-skinned, fragile-boned, limited sensory creatures survived millions of years on a Class 4 death world. They thrived there. They turned it into a garden. Relatively speaking, they took every predator, every parasite, every environmental disaster their planet threw at them and said, okay, how do we make this work for us? And they did. They always do. I was reviewing some historical Earth files yesterday. Found footage of something called a honey badger, which is apparently a small mammal about the size of Rafi's torso. According to the documentation, this creature regularly fights off lions, survives venomous snake bites that would kill animals 10 times its size, and has been observed raiding beehives despite being stung hundreds of times. They literally do not know when to quit. There was a note in the file added by some human researcher. It said, the honey badger is not the strongest, fastest, or most dangerous predator in its environment, but it might be the most stubborn, and sometimes that is more important. Humans, I realized, are the galactic equivalent of honey badgers. Not the scariest thing out there, not the most physically impressive, but absolutely, categorically, perhaps insanely persistent. Rafi walked past my station as I was thinking this. She was carrying a coffee mug with words printed on it. Apex Predator in Training, it said, with a picture of a human stick figure holding a spear. She saw me reading it and grinned. Gift from my sister back on Earth. She thinks she is funny. Is she wrong though? I asked. Rafi considered this. Humans are not really apex predators in the traditional sense. We are more like apex adapters, apex problem solvers, apex survivors. We did not evolve to be the best at any one thing. We evolved to be decent at everything and excellent at figuring stuff out. She took a sip of her coffee and headed toward the lab, leaving me alone with my thoughts. 3 weeks ago I thought I understood the power dynamics of the galaxy. Predators and prey. Strong and weak. Simple categories that made sense. Then a human girl in cartoon pajamas walked up to something designed by evolution to kill efficiently, and she scratched it behind the ears until it purred. The galaxy has humans categorized wrong. We all do. We see what they lack instead of what they possess. We measure them against other species' strengths instead of understanding their own. But here is what I know now, what that night taught me in ways I will never forget. When you back a human into a corner, when you threaten something they care about, when you make them choose between running and fighting, they do not choose either option. They choose option 3, the option nobody else considered, the option that should not work but somehow does anyway. They choose to understand the threat, adapt to it, and turn it into something that works for them instead of against them. That is not weakness. That is something far more dangerous than simple strength could ever be. That is humanity. Soft skin wrapped around steel determination, fragile bodies housing unbreakable will, prey animals that somehow, impossibly learn to make the predators work for them. And the scariest part, they are still learning, still adapting, still figuring out new ways to survive, to thrive, to turn every disadvantage into an unexpected advantage. The galaxy thought it understood humans when we joined the Galactic Union, thought we were cute, harmless, maybe useful for our technology but ultimately insignificant in the bigger picture. We were wrong. All of us. Completely fundamentally wrong. And Rafie, drinking coffee from her ridiculous mug, heading off to teach a Vraxid shredder some new behavioral tricks. She knows we were wrong. She has always known. She just waited for us to figure it out ourselves. That might be the most human thing of all.